Hello and welcome to another episode of Botanical Rebellion. Yeah, I sound a little funny and I've been a little MIA, but I have been battling pneumonia and asthma and it has been a challenge. That being said, I chose the topic about medical advocacy. I decided I would touch base on some medical advocacy, including ADA guidelines. I want to start by reading a little segment from Garden of Blue, which is my memoir. That's my first book. It's been out for a while, and I will have an audiobook coming out later. But now I figured it would be fun to read a little bit from that book, because if you haven't read it yet, check it out. That would be really cool. And as I'm recording this, forgive me because I feel like I'm struggling to keep my breath, but here we are, and I appreciate your patience. PTMT, post-traumatic medical trauma. Post-traumatic medical trauma is a post-traumatic response to medical-related trauma, physiological or psychological stress due to a medical event, chronic pain, serious illness, or injury. The fear of death, complexity of illness, grief, medical neglect, and other negative experiences can trigger a PTSD-like response. A feeling takes over you, nuzzling into the pit of your stomach, that buzzes out to your limbs. It's like you are standing at the edge of a cliff, but there's no beautiful view, just a worry so strong that it consumes you. Your blood feels thick as it boils through your veins, dragging its gloom to the surface of your skin, begging to get out. This is the feeling that takes over your brain, your gut, and your heart. It's the aftershock of a traumatic event that creeps up on you, tapping you on the shoulders and pouring itself into your bones. Post-traumatic medical trauma is a name I thought to put a title on the common feeling that many people with health illnesses can relate to. Health anxiety and depression from chronic illness are frequent concerns for many people. Common struggles for people with chronic illness: missing or grieving your previous healthier life and adjusting to a change due to health issues. Having to cancel on friends and family often or change plans because of your health. Feeling secluded and like no one understands you. Financial issues due to the lack of work or missing work from illness. Feeling exhausted and having a hard time keeping up with minor tasks. Not talking about how you feel or your feelings for the sake of not making others feel uncomfortable. Being dismissed by medical providers or loved ones. Traumatic medical experiences, brain fog, chronic pain and or health issues. Coping with an incurable disease or disorder. Unsolicited medical advice. Insurance issues, scheduling conflicts, and other general concerns. I often wonder why some doctors don't ask their patients how they are coping with their health issues. For some, they hide their anxiety or depression out of fear that their health issues will be dismissed and labeled as anxiety or stress. I have personally brushed over living with depression out of fear my issues would be blamed on stress. Stress will absolutely make health issues worse or create a domino effect of new health ailments. I will always emphasize that you must give your body a fighting chance. While stress can sometimes be the answer, it is also an overused catch-all to idiopathic symptoms without a clear or definite answer. This results in many patients, like myself, spending much of their lives living undiagnosed. For me personally, my traumatic health memories sometimes follow me to bed and enter my dreams. Having a small health scare, like a few palpitations in a row, can trigger PTMT and put a damper on the rest of my day, like a dark cloud following me around all day. I can't help but think of moments when my heart almost gave up on me for good. My lips turned dusky as everything around me faded out. My heart was struggling and chaotic, as if each beat could be the last. My limbs were cold on the ground as I struggled to take tiny drops of air into my lungs. My life did not flash before my eyes, but a sinking feeling of worry about my kids growing up without a mother. It's not fair. I'm not ready. Please, help. Every palpitation I get is a flashback of those moments. And some days are so beautiful and the sun shines, blanketing everything in gold. The air is perfect and I have everything to be grateful for. But still, sometimes those moments tickle my neck because I'm so scared to lose it all. You are not alone. Finding local or online support groups are helpful for finding answers in a community of others who understand what you have gone through or what you may be going through. Seeking therapy is also a beneficial way to learn how to cope and work through the stress. Burying your feelings or sweeping them under the rug is not a way to get by. Dealing with your trauma is nothing to be ashamed of or ignore. Mental health needs to be addressed prior to it becoming critical or too late. And since we are talking about some heavy stuff today, I'd like to also drop the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 800-273-8255. That little segment that I just read is from my book, Garden of Blue, and it's chapter 7 called Do No Harm. As someone who has had chronic illnesses my entire life, learning how to advocate for myself was life-saving. And it's something that I'm really passionate about because I see it all the time. I see patients, clients, friends being dismissed and not knowing how to stand up for themselves, not knowing how to advocate for themselves. And times are scary. We don't know where they will lead, where they will head, and what is to come in the future. It is important now to make sure that you educate yourself so that you know how to advocate for yourself. I also think it's important to know what your rights are. Before the ADA, disabled people were invisibilized, locked out of schools, jobs, public spaces, and dignity. They are too fragile for the system that's too rigid to bend towards humanity. That kind of sounds familiar, right? But in the 1970s and 80s, grassroots disability warriors, from wheelchairs to crutches or carrying oxygen, dragged themselves up to the courthouse steps in what became known as the Capitol Crawl. They were done fucking around. The crawl became a roar, and on July 26, 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was signed into law. Let's break down the ADA. The ADA is a civil rights law. It's not a favor. It's not a fucking permission slip. It's a legally binding mandate. And it says, no person with a disability shall be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of any program or activity of a public entity. In short, you have the right to access education, jobs, public spaces, transportation, and healthcare, even if your disability is invisible, fluctuating, or misunderstood. What does this mean for my chronically ill rebels? Let's start with the workplace. So how do we request ADA accommodations in the workplace? Number one, you want to know your rights. ADA Title I protects you in the workplace, and your employer must provide reasonable accommodations. Not all employers or places or organizations have an ADA disability coordinator, so in that case, you would want to contact Human Resources and ask them about their ADA accommodations process. It is a process. This may take time. Plan for that. It's not something you can just snap your fingers and have it happen overnight. You have to have your doctors involved, and we'll get to that. Next, let's go ahead and talk about what to say, some sample language. Make sure you keep this conversation with HR or the person who is in charge of the ADA accommodations. I don't recommend going up to your boss or someone who could possibly discriminate against you. Even though that is illegal, it is just not the right protocol. It's not the right process. So just to be safe, make sure you're talking to the right person. And what you can say is something like, "Hi, I live with a chronic health condition that qualifies under ADA. I would like to start the process for requesting reasonable accommodations." Next, get a doctor's letter. Ask your provider to document your diagnosis, in which you do not need every detail, but just include how it affects your work and the specific support you may need. This could include a flexible schedule, air purifier, seated tasks, and so on. Next, you will submit a formal request, complete the employer's ADA forms, if any, and attach your documentation. Please be sure to keep communication in writing. Email works fine. And I say this because word of mouth, it doesn't cover anybody's ass. I've had situations in the past where I have verbally tried to communicate and tried to work out these details with the wrong people and got nowhere, but there's no documentation on my end or on their end. Let's go over examples of reasonable accommodations. This could also include remote or hybrid work, mobility support, flexible breaks for medication and rest, access to temperature-controlled or scent-free environments. Next, you'll want to engage in the interactive process. Legally, the employer must work with you to find effective solutions. They can suggest alternatives, but they cannot ignore or delay your request. If they do, should they refuse or retaliate, you can file an internal grievance or escalate to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That's eeoc.gov. For schools, colleges, universities, this is how you can get academic accommodations. Again, you want to know your rights. ADA Title II and Section 504 protect you in public and private educational institutions. Schools must offer equal access through academic and clinical accommodations. And again, you're going to talk to the Disabilities Service Office or the ADA 504 coordinator. If you're in a small or private school, that could be a specific role that doesn't sound like that. So you'll just want to find out who is in charge of this particular task. Do not rely on instructors or deans. They are not legally equipped to process accommodations. Make sure you get it in email. Gather your documentation. Get that letter from your provider that includes your diagnosis, functional limitations, nature of the condition, and suggested accommodations. Next, you'll want to request a meeting. The language for that could look like, I would like to request ADA accommodations for chronic health conditions. Can we set up an intake meeting with disability services, or could you direct me on who is in charge of ADA accommodations? Now you'll want to create a formal accommodation plan. This could be modified attendance for flare days, deadline flexibility, remote attendance or lecture recordings, private or low sensory testing room, extended time on exams, and emergency medical flexibility without penalties. Once you get approved, you have to share these accommodation letters with your professors. The previous school I was in, I had to send my accommodations to each professor every semester. And this is what's great, is that you control what's disclosed. You are not required to explain your diagnosis to your professors, only the accommodation plan. And if they deny or ignore your accommodations, contact the school's ADA 504 grievance officer or file a complaint with the Office for Civil Rights. Be sure to file within 180 days of the discriminatory act. Systems don't change unless people with lived experiences call them in. You do not owe your school or employer a pain story to earn rest. Access is not about proving that you're broken. It is about reminding institutions that they were never designed with your body in mind. You deserve to thrive in your biology and not apologize for it. In the show notes, in my blog, you'll see all of this there for easy access for you to use. Next, I want to skip to chapter 14 in my book, Garden of Blue, and it's called Grieving Your Past Self. Grieving is not something you only experience through the death of a loved one. It's something you feel when suffering through a loss. It's the distress of overwhelming pain and sorrow. Sometimes that loss is the life you dreamt of, or the life you once had. For some, their illness came suddenly, knocking them down during the peak of their career. For others, it's the loss of what could have been. It's the loss of what their body stole from them. Someone once healthy said to me that people get sick because they want attention. That could not be further from the truth. You do not get attention when you're sick. You feel alone, unheard, and isolated. When a healthy person breaks their arm, they get condolences, cards, and cute little notes on their cast. For someone with chronic illness, it's nothing like that. Instead, it's the redundant and broken record. People don't often understand the reality of chronic illness. Many times we don't even speak about our illness, or at least we try to limit it when we do. We are told that we are too negative, too lazy, or it's just all too much to handle. When someone asks us how our day is, we often try to make them more comfortable by saving them from the awkwardness of responding with the truth. I'm fine, we'll say. When I was single, I usually forewarned whoever I was dating that I had heart issues. I always figured it was the right thing to do. What if I was too much for them? Many times, I would go to the emergency room and not even tell them. I didn't want anyone to worry about something that was normal for me. Of course, later on down the road, in some relationships, my chronic illness felt like a burden. There was this one person I was dating. It was light and fun and casual, and things got serious. Though I am not sure if what comes next was fueled by uncertainty, At the time, I wasn't ready for a relationship, and I was sometimes distant and cold. I got dumped. I didn't get dumped because I was aloof and uncertain as to what I wanted, but it was because of my heart. I was told, I don't know if I want to get involved with someone who has heart issues, like, what if you died? Or what if I had to take care of you all the time? I'm sorry, it's just too much. In another relationship, I was told I was a hypochondriac. I have been told that I always complained about something, or that they can't keep up with all my ailments. With friends, I have been called a flake. And don't get me wrong, I have earned that title during one phase of my life, but most of the time I was bailing on plans due to my health. Though close friends understood, new friends or acquaintances did not. With chronic illness, your invitations to outings and events tend to be less and less frequent. I felt forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a Swiss-American psychiatrist who came up with the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. These stages are not linear, and not everyone fits this model. For chronic illness, we have many sub-stages, and the framework is more of a mess. For some, the stages just cycle over and over, or we get stuck in one stage. For many, we balance life in the acceptance stage and then suddenly find ourselves feeling angry again. Identifying these feelings can help you to feel less alone while making sense of your emotions. Shock and denial. I can't count how many times I've sat up in my doctor's office begging for new tests or blood work. I often hope that somehow we missed something and that all I need to do is a minor change and I can be healthy. And then my blood work comes back and everything is normal. How can I possibly feel this way forever? Denial is finally getting the answers you've been searching for and then wanting to light those answers on fire and get a redo. Denial is working a full-time job when your body isn't cut out for it, but you have bills to pay and mouths to feed. Instead, you work all day until you come home and collapse in bed, too exhausted to shower, as every cell in your body is in agonizing pain. Denial is smiling through a conversation with a friend as your vision fades and your limbs go numb and there's ringing in your ears. You know this wave of pre-syncope will pass and you'll hold on to the wall. You don't say anything because it's normal for you and you want to be normal for them. I'm just tired, you say. Blame and guilt. You may find yourself doing something mundane, brushing your teeth, and then suddenly burst into tears. You comb through the past wondering if there was something you did wrong or if you just took better care of yourself, that things would have been different. Why me? Maybe you did everything by the book. You ate your vegetables, you were always positive, and you even tried yoga. But here you are suffering. It isn't fair. What makes it worse is that people give their unsolicited advice, suggesting exercise. When you do exercise, your heart rate skyrockets, you feel dizzy, and you spend the next 24 hours in bed, or bronchial spasms and chest pain take over. Of course, we all love the heal your trauma, as you've already been in therapy and read all the latest self-help books. But maybe if you changed your diet or tried this supplement, though you are likely already on a strict diet due to food sensitivities and already incorporate vitamins into your medicine routine. What haven't we tried? Some of these suggestions may help, but it doesn't put a dent into our mountain of health issues. These suggestions plant a seed in your brain, making you question if you caused this. Remember, you did not cause this. Anger. There are moments when I'm pissed off and furious. I'm exhausted and in pain and so very angry. In these moments, I feel utterly disheartened and hopeless. However, these moments pass. It's important to not live here in this stage of grief. Continuing to fight and stay positive is a challenge on its own, and anger is healthy in small doses. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to feel the lows. Find a hobby, find an outlet, support group, therapist, start journaling. Use anger as fuel for motivation. Using anger as fuel for motivation is something I've always strived for. Tomorrow is a new day. I would grunt to myself while rolling my eyes. I allowed myself to be angry that day, eating ice cream and letting my body recover. Tomorrow will be a new day. We'll try this again. Bargaining is when you tell yourself that this new diet is going to make you feel better. You convince yourself that if you become more spiritual, more physically active, more positive, that maybe your outcome will change. Yes, lifestyle changes have a profound impact. I always say that you have to give your body a fighting chance with nourishment, hydration, stress management, a healthy diet, quality sleep, and self-care. Do not confuse this with not taking responsibility, as sometimes we can only do so much and still find ourselves sick. Know that the grieving process with chronic illness is a roller coaster. We often think that maybe we aren't trying hard enough, and part of the bargaining stage is desperately trying hard to find a solution. Depression and/or anxiety. You can hide it and you can pretend it doesn't exist, but depression and anxiety are very much an aspect of chronic illness. Depression is the feeling of impending doom, but that feeling sticks around, even if you are happy and having a good day. It slithers into your existence, and it isn't always tied to a memory or life experience. Anxiety is the nervous butterflies in the pit of your stomach that grows into your chest. Positively thinking it away is not a thing, and depression is not always something you can control. Though depression and anxiety do not discriminate, they can be more prevalent in the disabled or chronically ill community. Imagine building your goals up and lifelong dreams. Your ambitious personality and positive mental attitude kicks ass, and you have the world at your fingertips. But you keep getting knocked down due to uncontrollable circumstances. Your health. Sure, you can dust yourself off and try again. But the reality is, it's hard and it sure gets old when decades go by and you watch your peers buy houses and new cars and start families and live successful lives. Meanwhile, you try to figure out how you can afford not having an income for weeks or months at a time as you recover from surgery, balancing which medications you can afford while making sure there's enough money left over for a cheap dinner. Then you start over just to ride the big wave until you crash again. It can be lonely, even when you have supportive friends and family. It's a place that not many people understand. Chronic illness is an unpaid full-time job. It's exhausting and scary. Support groups are very helpful. Finding a community of people with similar health issues helps you to cope, not feel alone, and also educates you on your illness. Anxiety is an issue as well, because having chronic illness can be traumatic. It is absolutely crucial that you manage your mental health. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Check your local resources if you are uninsured. Join support groups. See a therapist. Make it a priority. Mental health is just as important as your physical health. Acceptance. Put your warrior paint on. You have your medical records organized and recent tests and labs done. You're making progress with answers or even starting new treatments. You've got this. Or maybe you don't, but you have just accepted the cards that you are handed and will make it work. This stage varies for many, and it's a sliding scale. For some, it could mean that you are managing. For others, this stage comes and goes, varying based on what condition your health is in. Again, this process is not linear. It's a fucking scribble. You may visit the land of acceptance often. Maybe you have a beach house there, or maybe you're planning a vacation here, but you likely won't retire here. We're nomads of this grieving process. We jump around, visit, flip-flop between stages, and circle back around. Acceptance is the best place to be. It's when we really feel positive and we're not just faking it. It's when we fight for awareness and advocacy. It's when we make progress or actually have less of a painful day. It's when your treatment is manageable and you're coasting. Find a purpose, like sharing your story, becoming an advocate, or raising awareness of your condition. This helps to coast in the acceptance stage a little longer, being fueled by helping others to not feel alone. Purpose. We don't always fully accept our loss, and that's okay. Sometimes I feel like I drive myself crazy trying to find acceptance. What has helped me is finding my reason or purpose for the pain and suffering that I've endured. Raising awareness helps others to feel less alone, while also helping others to discover a diagnosis. Awareness also paves a path for those who are following a similar journey. Awareness is advocacy. It's activism. What will the purpose from this pain or loss inspire? There's much more in my book, Garden of Blue, and the following chapter, I even go over how to work through a problem. It's just literally the scientific process, but I break down a problem using the scientific process, which I thought was really cool. There's a little bit of how to advocate for yourself and self-care, and more of my personal journey from being a chronic illness warrior, a mother, narcissistic abuse, medical gaslighting, and even a poetry chapter. There's also a chapter on how to listen to your body. It's time for me to wrap up this episode, but please don't hesitate to reach out if you would like to request any specific topics, or if you'd like to be a guest. I am having people send me recordings, and I'm also about ready to start scheduling people to join my podcast. If you have a topic that you're passionate about that could potentially help others and align with my mission, reach out to me. Also, keep in mind that my new book, Botanical Rebellion, Apothecary Guide to Nature's Alchemy, is available for pre-order. This book comes out on National Self-Care Day, which is July 24th.